Hey, what's up? Zach here, and today I've got the all-new Way of Wade Fission 8, and spoiler alert, they're awesome. Let's get into them. And a big thanks to Way of Wade for sending me a pair of these over to check out. However, as always, this video is not sponsored, and all opinions, of course, are still my own. Now, the Wade Fission 8 from dorsal plantar view, or even from top down, looks a lot like the Way of Wade 10, except the biggest difference is all the meshing and all the caging in the Fission 8. And if you can see here, it is just wide open pores in the very top layer of the uppers. And once you get to the second layer, there is another layer of pretty wide honeycombing, but then under that is a very tight meshing layer. And so as you can see, that there is still a lot of substance to the uppers. I mean, if you look at the breathability test on these, they still heated up 152.2 degrees, but then cooled down 75.7 degrees. That was a pretty decent cooling in these shoes. And that's just because, number one, there's a lot of vents in these shoes to get the air out of them. But number two, the air flow is so efficient through them. Number one, they actually do have holes, perforations in the insole of them to allow a little bit more flow. The strobo board is all mesh, and then there is those 3 layers of meshing in the uppers. So as long as you're not stuffing the shoe with a super thick sock, or you're just really stuffing the shoe in general, there is enough airflow in these shoes to when you're producing enough heat, air will still be escaping constantly, so they will regulate temperature pretty decent. And speaking of that airflow, my very favorite part of the Fission 8 has got to be the tongue. Number one, so thin and breathable, a lot of honeycombing, a lot of meshing, really big pores here in the proximal part of the tongue, but it also has pretty thick padding all the way down the middle, right where the shoelaces would start to dig into your ankle or kind of give you a little bit of numbness, and you don't get any of that. But moving up from the tongue, probably the thing that makes these play the best in the uppers is definitely the lace line. Number one, you get a combo outrigger lace eyelet and integrated lace eyelet on the 2 middle stays, but then in the heel, you actually get the external heel counter locking into the lace line, but that's the second to last lace eyelet. You still then go back through the integrated lace eyelet after that to the most proximal or last lace eyelet. And what that does is that just cinches the shoe down so well around you, and that just gives you such great security in the shoe. That is a lot of meshing around there, but still makes it feel like that maximalist lockdown. On the upper durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, I mean, yeah, the burr does go right through the drag guard, the external layer. It starts to make a little bit of impression on the mesh. However, underneath of the mesh is another hard layer underneath. That being said, remember, it is a mesh upper, so if you're an extreme dragger on an outdoor court, I would just try to keep it off the uppers of the shoe. Now, getting into the midsole teardown of the 8s, I finally figured out what Light Foam Plus was. Thank you. Now, Light Foam Plus in this shoe is this carrier foam, the gray carrier foam that goes all the way through. Now, Light Foam Plus is an olefin copolymer foam, which is pretty similar to Under Armour's Flow Foam, which is made with real similar characteristics of diaper elastic. Now, the difference between Light Foam Plus and Light Foam is where they take a lot of the fillers, the fibers, and the powder out of it to make it less dense. And it was interesting on the members only teardown video, the extended leg teardown. If you want to see these teardowns extended length and early, you want to be one of the first to see the insides of these shoes, make sure you click into the membership section down below. Those videos are pretty cool. It's a little bit, extended format of the teardown. You see the whole shoe get torn down from stem to stern all in one go. But anyway, what we were talking about is you can actually see the pores of this shoe from the naked eye. Usually to see the pores really well, you got to do it under the microscope, and you can just see them. And now Light Foam in general is a different way of foaming those copolymers to where the actual bubbles of foam or the cells of foam are oriented more regularly instead of real haphazardly. And what Li Ning and Way of Wade say is that type of foaming technique allows the foam to be much more light, much more lively and elastic, because they all are in a uniform. So it's just a much more streamlined type foam underneath your foot, and all those cells are kind of lined up really regularly. So it's almost like more efficient foaming, I should say. And then when you go to the Light Foam Plus, it's that really efficient kind of rows of foam, really uniform, but without filler or fibers in there as well. And I'm sure that is pretty much all you want to know about Light Foam Plus. But anyway, they also have 2 big pads here of boom foam, one here in the heel, and then an enormous bottom-loaded boom foam here in the forefoot, which you really do feel. It actually does make you feel a little bit more substantial underfoot. Similar to the Way of Wade 10, this also has a dual shank. One very stiff butterfly shank up here right underneath your footbed, but number 2, a really flexible and molded shank bottom-loaded on these shoes. It gives the shoe so much tension and memory to it. It just makes the shoe want to spring back every time you're on them. And I did notice that particularly with some of my ailments that I'm going through right now. I noticed that on these a lot more than others. So I like how they kept a lot of the kind of characteristics of the Wade 10, put them in a shoe that might be a little bit breezier, a little bit faster than the Wade 10. So you can kind of see kind of where Way of Wade was going with these. I mean, if you look at the bounce height test on them, 34 centimeters in the heel and then 37 centimeters in the forefoot. That boom foam being so well tuned, I guess, you know, that still does have a little bit more pop to it in the forefoot. Now, I'm not doing the jump height test right now. I'm going through crazy patellar tendonitis, or jumper's knee, I should say. I am actually in the process of getting a force sensor, and I actually developed another test. I actually woke up in the middle of the night and figured out this crazy test to determine the actual energy return of a shoe. It's super simple, but I have to test that out a little bit, so that will be coming down the road. I did notice, even with my jumper's knee shooting around on these, I was going pretty light on these just because I didn't want to flare up, and I noticed I couldn't even feel it on my knees. These were taking up so much of the force that I kind of was able to do a little bit more and have no pain in them. So I think that kind of says more about them even than the single leg jump height test would. And I didn't talk about this one component of the uppers because I really think it's a product of the midsole, but this external stabilizer here on the heel that goes all the way here into the shank arch of the shoe and then all the way to the medial side is really closely related to the external heel counter too. So when you're really pushing side to side or you're pushing laterally, the medial side of the shank or the medial side of the arch is also engaging the shoe. That's why these have such good containment going side to side with just all this meshing too. And getting into the outsole tread of the 8s, it is just one giant bed of infinity symbols, which function a lot like herringbone. I like it because it's a little bit more irregular, a little bit more smooth in shape than herringbone, so it kind of flows from step to step, maybe a little bit easier. But you gotta like these little individual flanges here on the lateral flange made completely of outsole rubber. Now, I do think that this might wear down a little bit more than just one block of a flange, but you're also getting a lot easier, more nimble movement out of this versus some shoes with really wide lateral flanges, which yes, give a great containment and really good for ankle sprainers, but they also kind of take down the nimbleness of the shoe a little bit because there's just so much out there. Whereas at this, these just little gills, these little flanges out here, it actually moves a little bit easier from step to step. So I'd love to see how this does 6 months down the road in terms of durability. But you know, if you look at the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, I mean, it's not even a millimeter of damage with the burr on it or to the infinity symbols. So like I said, the durometer is there, the hardness of the rubber is there, the abrasion resistance is there. So I hope that this does continue to kind of have the durability because this is a really nice feature of the shoe to kind of have this as individual flanges instead of one. I think people are really going to notice it, especially people that have really quick, fast footwork. And all those bells and whistles, I think, are pretty well represented in the speed ratio. Came in at a 2.45. I think for the profile of the shoe, what it can do, I think that does match pretty well. I do think these are a little bit faster than the speed ratio shows, just because, like I said, of the dual shanks, how tightly tuned the suspension of this shoe is and how quick they are side to side. Like I said, I am coming up with a test that I think will capture that as well, but suffice it to say, these are one of the fastest shoes off the blocks of any shoe right now on the market. And getting into the fit of the 8s, very similar to the Way of Wade 10s. They fit pretty generous in the forefoot of the shoe. They break in exceptionally easily because just of all the meshing in them and just because of the shape of the shoe. I would say if you're a narrow foot, probably go down a half size. Medium foot, if you want a real performance fit, probably go down a half size as well. 2E, I'd say true to size. And a 4E, I honestly think I would try to stay true to size and just try to break them in a little bit, just because I think you'll get that super performance fit on these and you'll get all the benefits of the shank, the heel stabilizer, you know, all that other stuff. So I would say, you know, try to at least get this as close to performance 1-to-1 as you can. And obviously in terms of the snake bitten foot, this is going to be one of the better ones out there, just like the Way of Wade 10 is, because of all the boom foam in there strategically placed, as well as those dual shanks holding your arch up. Now these will accept an orthotic pretty easily because, you know, the lace eyelets go way back. And I do think with a low profile orthotic in these, it makes these really elite for anybody really suffering from anything. However, on their own, they still have a tremendous amount of support to them. I think the coolest part of the Fission 8s has got to be their playability. You know, for these, I think number one, indoor and outdoor basketball, they're going to do great, but also indoor, outdoor pickleball, these are probably the best shoe out there right now for someone that wants like just one shoe for any surface they're going to play basketball or pickleball on. Now, the reason I like these so much for, you know, obviously basketball, pickleball too, is they do so well when you're trying to get lift or generate some energy off of your back foot. So if you're trying to do a turnaround jumper and trying to get a little bit more of a push from that back foot. If you're playing pickleball and you're trying to kind of dig for something behind you and still trying to get a little bit of oomph on it, same with tennis if you're hitting off your back foot. These do so well in giving you a little bit more energy return when you're not giving them all that much energy to begin with, right? When you're not giving them all that potential energy. I think that's number one. Remember, they got 2 shanks, plus this giant stabilizer, plus it's got 2 heel counters as well, internal combined external heel counter. So that the suspension on it, like I think I've been saying this on a few shoes, is just so tightly tuned to these. But second of all, you know, when they bend back, they do give you disproportionate snap going forward. So if you're someone that is fading away a lot on shots or just trying to create space for yourself off of your back foot, that's where these do their best work. They also do really well going from coast to coast on a basketball court. So if you're someone that is playing power small forward and you're trying to get to the hoop, and you're trying to get past somebody pretty quick or just trying to drive into the lane, this is going to be phenomenal. Also, you know, it's hot outside and it's summer. You want to shoot, it's a little more breezy, but you want to wear the Way of Wade 10, then this is a very good alternative because Way of Wade 10 is, you know, a little more of a maximalist shoe. They have such easy grip on the court. They don't like stick to the court, but you never feel like the shoe is going to give out from underneath you. And I think that's a product of these infinity symbols almost acting like almost like mini suction cups, but because they're not super sticky, they roll easily from shot to shot. I think that's why I also like them for pickleball, because you can kind of hold your ground on that pickleball court, same as on a basketball court. But of course, I'd love to know, you know, if you're a Way of Wade 10 fan, are you going to give these a chance? Maybe try to get these into your rotation for something maybe just a little bit more kind of forgiving, at least that feels a little bit lighter on foot, feels a little more breeze in the Way of Wade 10, just with some different materials. I just would love to hear your thoughts down below, especially because, you know, I like the Way of Wade 10 a lot. I like the tools in these maybe a little bit more. I think the profile of these is a little bit better because I think they learned from the Way of Wade 10 and then took kind of the best parts of it and just said kind of how do we streamline this a little more. And I think that's why this kind of spoke to me a little bit more, especially because, you know, I've been feeling a lot of pain recently and I didn't really feel any in these. I felt just so kind of easy kind of getting up and down on these. That's kind of where I stand with them. But if you do want to see their sibling to the Way of Wade Fission 8, the Way of Wade Son of Flash, a much different shoe than the Way of Wade Fission 8, especially in the fit category, make sure you click in this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam and light foam plus. Yeah. See you in the next one.